Hey, you guys. On today's Angela Box Show, I am honored to be joined by the founder of Deliver Fund, a man named Nic McKinley, who you will know very well by the end of this video, and also Christi Nabors, who is intimately involved with Deliver Fund. And if you ever have been wondering how this human trafficking epidemic really started and how bad it's really gotten, stick around for that today with this interview with Nic and Christi on the Angela Box Show.
Hello, my name is Angela Box.
Okay. Hi, Nic McKinley and Christi Nabors. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Angela. Thanks for having us.
I have to tell you, first of all, the way we all met was really wild. Christi, can you please explain how this connection even started? Because I love these serendipitous God things.
Oh, this is it. You wouldn't even believe it. And I probably won't even do it right. I was in Whitefish, Montana working because I'm based in Dallas and our office is in Dallas and Whitefish, Montana. That's where Nic is. And I was it's tough to decide what restaurant you want to go to. And I've been to
Whitefish. Especially if you're a tourist.
Yeah.
Well, there's like four to choose from. So.
Well, on the little main street. And I've been to them all. But I saw this lost person, Angela, and her husband, and they're like, where should we go? You know, we go here. And they my daughter and I were walking out of the restaurant and they were going to walk in. I was like, y'all can go here. This one is good. I promise you. And then I started to tell them, don't go to this one or this one, but the rest of these are excellent because there's a lot of good restaurants in Whitefish, but you just have to know where to go. So I think they went in and I gave Fred my card and we switched information like right then. And he reached out but yeah, it was at a tiny little restaurant.
I was there. Our family's there for my sister Emily's wedding.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You had a bunch of people with you.
Yeah, my stepmother Kim and her boyfriend Chuck Curry, who used to be into big search and rescue, who Nic knows. Like there's all kinds of interesting little So when I realized what you do, I was like, oh, holy shit! Like I want to talk to them. And then we all got the chance to meet up when you guys were in Houston, and you were so generous with your time. And I'm so like shocked at the things I'm learning and also just so saddened. So Nic, since you started Deliver Fund, can you just give us your background like quickly if you can, because your background is unbelievably impressive, and how you came to start this?
Well, thank you for that. I'd like to say I'm just actual proof that God does use the foolish things of the world. So I've been extremely blessed to have what I like to call a nonlinear background. I started actually life as a orphan out of Kansas City. Got just by the absolute grace of God, got adopted by an amazing family and got to grow up in Montana. But what does every kid from a small town want to do? They want to get out of that small town. So I joined the military, went straight into the Air Force Pararescue Teams, which is the Air Force's special operations ground component. A lot of people aren't familiar. The Air Force has that.
It's a secret special military type.
Yeah. And then I did that for 11 years, did a couple years in kind of the private equity and investing world, and got recruited into the Central Intelligence Agency, into a very small kinetic unit within the CIA. And I did that for a number of years. I'm not allowed to say exactly how long. And during that time when I was at the CIA, I saw human trafficking because I was a counterterrorism guy for the most part. And so you just assume that there's a version of you somewhere that's dealing with this human trafficking issue. And you see human trafficking everywhere overseas. And it wasn't until I was in southern Afghanistan and myself and a JSOC counterpart, we collected intel on what I like to call smoking gun intel. So like definitive intelligence on a human trafficker that was selling boys across the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. And so we tried to write that up to be able to get the government to take action, to be able to action that target. Like this kind of thing that you join the government to do. You want to go after the bad guys. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't get any worse of a bad guy than this. So long story short, over a period of weeks, we couldn't find anybody who had a mandate for human trafficking intelligence for us to share this intelligence with them. And that made me curious. It's like, why? I mean, you think about it, our government can kill people with flying robots from 6,000 miles away, but we can't do anything about these children that are being trafficked. So I started doing a lot of research into the issue, started looking at what the government was and was not doing. Government's not doing anything. In fact, human trafficking and child exploitation is not even what's called a mandatory reporting requirement, which means that all of your spies that are out there are not even looking for this information. And so that made me even more curious, and I started looking into the economics of it, and I learned that dollar for dollar, the largest human trafficking and child exploitation market in the world is the United States of America. And that was really a crossroads for me, where I decided, I've got the skills, I've got the network, I know how to go after illicit commodities and after bad guys. I need to do something about this. So 11 years ago, we created Deliver Fund, which is the first technology and operational focused nonprofit in America going after the human trafficking and child exploitation issues.
And we're going to watch a quick informational video. It's very quick, but it kind of gives you an overview of what Deliver Fund is. And then I have lots of questions.
A child is trafficked every 2.5 minutes in the United States, enough to fill 3 football stadiums with trafficked children every year. The profile of a human trafficker is often not what you expect. They can be coaches, pastors, community leaders, and people in positions of power. Human traffickers are a cancer on our communities, but there is a cure. Deliver Fund is a nonprofit organization powered by donors to fight human trafficking at speed and scale. Every time a trafficker steps into the internet to advertise their victims, Deliver Fund is waiting to capture their digital footprint, using our innovative technology to gather billions of human trafficking-related data points across the country. We are illuminating the path of human traffickers in real time. Deliver Fund doesn't just fight human trafficking. We weaponize technology against the most destructive criminals in American society who exploit the weak and vulnerable. We're not just chasing criminals. We're dismantling entire human trafficking networks with our law enforcement and technology partners. We are patriots and parents, computer engineers, and former law enforcement and special operators, united in combating the traffickers who threaten the safety of every community with a full force of technology and actionable intelligence. You can join the fight.
Okay, so as you're talking, Nick, I'm just thinking, like, when you realize that this whole human and child sex trafficking, I mean, we've all seen Sound of Freedom. We know who Tim Ballard is.
Sure.
And, it's interesting, side note, what they tried to do to Tim Ballard when he was front and center on this. It just makes you wonder, like, how deep and wide does this thing go? And that must have been really shocking for you, to realize that these things are going on under our noses, where children are being trafficked, exploited, satanic pedophile networks. It's not like some big conspiracy theory. Like, these things are real, and I want you to talk about that. But, like, did you click on, like, oh my God, like, this must go to the very top if no one is talking about it?
No, I actually don't think that it's as conspiratorial as
Okay.
we think. And just after doing this for 10 years, I really think it just comes down to, like, why do our politicians not care about this issue? And the reason I say politicians don't care about this issue, and I will die on this hill, so any politicians who want to argue with me on this, just send me a location and let's have the conversation. But let's do it publicly. Because how do we know if a politician is interested in something, right, and actually cares about something? They fund it. So we have a drug enforcement agency. 90% of drugs are legal. So we spend billions of dollars a year fighting what is the illicit sale of legal commodities. We have a Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, which makes no sense because alcohol, tobacco, and firearms are all legal. You probably have them all in your office simultaneously right now. And, firearms is actually a constitutionally protected commodity, yet we spend billions of dollars a year fighting the illicit sale of those commodities. Per the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, 100% of human slavery, which is, human trafficking is just a nice word for human slavery. Human slavery is illegal. And where's our counter human trafficking agency? It doesn't exist. And the reason it doesn't exist is because our politicians have not funded a agency to exist. And you've got some great men and women at the DOJ and at Homeland Security and the FBI and county sheriff's offices around the country, police around the country who are working hard on this issue, but nothing like they're working on property crimes or narcotics or ATF issues or anything like that. And I think ultimately it just comes down to one thing: kids don't vote, and the parents of children who are trafficked traditionally don't have much power. And so there's really no reason for politicians to pay attention to this. And then there is the fourth piece, which is that we do know that a lot of politicians, and there's obviously lots of reporting on this, they like what they think are prostitutes. But the major majority of what people think are prostitutes are actually human trafficking victims. So if you have senators and congressmen who need to write some laws and some regulations around this issue, but they were just with what they think is a prostitute last night, what are the chances they're actually going to put forward the proper regulations around this issue? And obviously I don't need to get into all of the media reporting around politicians being involved in the commercial sex trade. Well, the major majority of human trafficking in America is commercial sex related. So you can start to understand why the government, both at the federal level and then at a lot of the state levels, don't really take this issue that seriously.
Well, and Christi, let me bring you in because there is on the Deliver Fund website, there is a story. There's several stories about trafficking victims that Deliver Fund actually saved. And obviously you're not going to be showing the faces of these women or young boys or whomever. But there was a story of Samantha that we're going to watch. And then I would like for you to expound upon that.
Because they sweet talk, like that's what the whole Romeo pimp's about. They'll sweet talk you. They'll make you think that like you're doing it because you love them. Like if you love them, you'll do that. But some guys are like, well, if you love me, you'll have sex with me. No, this one's like, if you love me, you'll go sell your body for me. And then they take all your money. They're supposed to take care of you, but it's all a form of control. When I first started working, I would have breakdowns. In the middle of a session, I couldn't do it. Till finally, I kind of just separated me and who I am when I'm working. Otherwise, I would go crazy. I would lose it. You numb your mind. The thing about heroin is, at a certain point, you'll do whatever it takes to get it. You need it. They get you where you're dependent on them for it. So you need them to survive, basically. I remember one time I was just outside smoking a cigarette and someone asked me for a lighter and he had somebody watching me. I got beat for that later, and it was just because someone asked me to use my lighter. Because I wasn't allowed to talk to anybody. When we went out, I had to tell him my order to tell the waiter. I couldn't look at anybody. I had to look at him or the ground. And if you messed up in public, then you were gonna get beat as soon as you got back to the room. And he'd make sure nobody heard. He'd turn up the TV and turn on the shower. And if you cried or screamed or anything, then he would take you out of the room, and you never knew if death was gonna be an option. Never knew. epidemic. It's an underground epidemic that nobody has any idea about. Because when they see an escort or a prostitute, all they think is a drug-addicted whore that lives on the street. They don't think about the story behind it. They don't think about, is she being forced to do this? Does she have to do this? Is she getting beat if she doesn't do this? If I could wave a magic wand to solve this problem, it would just to have all the people that used to turn their heads away from the girls that are on the street corners or on the websites, and for them to reach out, to look, to open their eyes to see us, instead of turn the other way.
Okay, so Christi Nabors, Samantha's story. How common is Samantha's story when Deliver Fund starts to dig into these things? How common are stories like Samantha's?
Samantha is a textbook case. You know, she was 12 years old when she was started into trafficking. She was trafficked by her mother, which familial trafficking is very common for very young children. And then later on, they get hooked on drugs. They have been passed around from trafficker to trafficker. So it's a very common story. And this is a lot of what it looks like in America. Trafficking in America is American men buying American girls with American dollars. That's what trafficking is. People think it's people who are smuggled in a back of a truck. That's not trafficking. That's human smuggling. So I think that people have a different idea of what it is and what it looks like. And really, when it comes to, like, when Nic hit on the prostitution, point, people don't believe that that's trafficking, but the people that they're purchasing are forced to be there. So those people are victims. And people participating in that lifestyle often don't think that they are.
It's very, I mean, we hear the horror stories, and, Borders are Tom Homan. I remember years ago, a group that I was associated with, I didn't get to see the speech, but he was on the border talking about the scourge of the little kids being trafficked.
Yeah.
And one of the things he showed the group were horrifying videos and pictures of little kids with these panda eyes. And I mean, we talk about older children, we talk about young women, and it's all awful. But when we talk about, like, the commoditization of little children, how common is that? And does Deliver Fund come across that? I guess I'll ask Nic. How often do you come across that?
So that's extremely common. And again, let's just go back to what the data shows us. The data shows us that the United States of America is the largest child exploitation market on the planet. Like, we are number one on that issue. And I think the primary reason why is because we're the rich neighborhood in the globe, right? So you think about, where is the drug problem in a city in Houston? Well, it's predominantly at the higher end high school, not the more socioeconomically depressed high school, because the socioeconomically depressed ones, they don't have the money. They can't buy the drugs. It's the rich kids who are buying the drugs, right? So that's where the drug problem is. Well, we are the rich kids of the globe. So where does that child sexual abuse material, where do the victims actually get purchased? They get purchased here in America. And there's a little bit of a kind of a misnomer around child exploitation. A lot of people think that, well, the child exploitation stuff of, like, what Tom, and I know Tom, what he was talking about on the border, is just a small, less than single digit percentage of the actual child exploitation that happens. And the reason why that you see more and more Americans who are being trafficked is really because of the internet. Mm-hmm. One of the statistics that I found extremely shocking comes from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and they collected data or went back and analyzed data that they had between 2010 and 2015. And what they found was they had an 846% increase in suspected child trafficking cases. Well, why? The reason why is because of internet connected smartphones and social media apps. And now it's not just social media apps, it's gaming apps like Roblox, Minecraft, the communications that they use, Discord. So
what is
anywhere
Discord? Is that like a Telegram
Oh, wow.
or Telegram? I'm so old. What is Discord?
Yeah, it's a secure server. Basically, just think of it as a bunch of small versions of Telegram, but where they can have really large numbers of people in there, and that tends to be what the gamers are on, communicating with each other while they're playing the games. And there's little to no moderation that happens in these, and these companies, they like to try to paint themselves as, well, we're doing the best job we can, and there's really not that much child exploitation that's going on. But if you look at everything from the extremism, like if you look at the Charlie Kirk shooter is a great example. He was radicalized online through games. I mean, that much we know. If you look at the suicides that are happening amongst preteens and teens in this country, a lot of that comes back to social media and games. And so connecting the entire world together through the internet was a terrible idea, because in my day, pre-internet, I'm kind of an old guy, so the only kids that the pedophiles could get their hands on, or that traffickers could get their hands on, were the kids that were, if they were a soccer coach, it was the kids on the soccer team or the Boy Scouts or whatever it might be. Today, that 40-year-old man can get on the internet and pretend to be a 16-year-old boy and start befriending 12, 13, 14-year-old girls, and can do that at a massive scale. So really all the internet did was give all of the predators access to all of the prey.
It's such a rabbit hole. Christi, when we're talking about Deliver Fund, because Nick, I watched a podcast that you did, and I'm going to make sure it's linked down below. It's well worth a listen. Where you talk about the Roblox and the gaming platforms and the things that these predators how they groom these kids. And I want you to talk about that in just a second. But Christi, does Deliver Fund have a presence on those platforms where they are scoping out potential predators and then alerting those to law enforcement?
So, well, let me tell you how it happens. When kids are playing their video games online, they have a friend they think it's their friend, right? And that person is investing a lot of time with them. So there are things on there that wouldn't be a flag to even most of the time a parent even. But the kid builds more and more and more trust. But then what happens? This is where it, Angela, so I can't really answer your question, because they'll start their communication on Discord. But then they learn, oh, what is your Instagram? So then they'll message them on Instagram, and then you'll see a message there. But then they find them on their other chat apps. So what if you weren't able to piece together each of the different channels and make the full conversation? Because there'll be a text in their text. It looks like nothing. There's something on their Discord. There's something on the Roblox. But the timestamps are like, that's 30 seconds after that, 20 seconds. But when you put them together, that's when you see the problem. So that's what I've seen. And that's what parents are always like, oh, I've checked their messages. Well, good for you. But did you check every other device and chat system that they have, even ones that you don't even know that they have? because so even if you were to monitor, and by the way, Roblox and all, they say they monitor, and there's no monitoring. But as a parent or a law enforcement, just monitoring the one, it's when you put all the conversations together that you really see the big picture. One, like there are some flags that, like, hey, what's your social security number? What is your mom's address? They will give their parents' address, their grandparents' address, their social security number. I mean,
because kids don't know.
Well, no, because guess
Right.
what? This person just promised them that we're going to come build a life together. Right. So you're going to, your mind.
Amazon gift card.
Oh, all of
Yeah.
it. And you're seeing like everybody's information right there, and they hand it all out.
Nic, what are some of the things? Because this is what I did not know what in my mind, I'm thinking Roblox are like Legos, but online, like little, and that's not it at all. That's not it at all.
No.
That's cute.
Why now? You're like, oh, that's cute. What are Roblox, and what are some of the things that these groomers are doing to these kids so parents can know? Because it's wild.
Well, first, I would say before we get into this, if there's any parents listening to this and you've got your kids in the car, maybe go ahead and turn it off and go listen to it when your kids aren't around, because these things are horrific beyond anything you could imagine. Within, and there are groups that are coming for your children. And that is the message that I've been trying to get out, is that's not a conspiracy theory. They are coming for your kids. Right now, one of the biggest offenders is a domestic terrorist organization, a group that Trump actually recently declared a domestic terrorist organization called 764. And what it is it is a extremely violent satanic cult, and the currency is your child's life. And what they do is they befriend children. They try to find like the lonely kid. They try to find somebody with some mental health issues. And what they'll do, but that doesn't mean it's only that. What they'll do is they'll essentially love bomb these kids, and they'll get them to think that they're their friends, boyfriends, girlfriends, things like that. And then what they'll do is they build what they call a lure book, and they'll get these children to do something small, like, hey, I need you to, I don't know, send me a nude or something like that. And the child will send it. And then they use that as extortion material. And then what they'll do is they'll say, okay, well, you sent me this nude. Now I want you to elevate that a little bit more and elevate that a little bit more. And you can use your imagination or don't. And then they'll say, okay, well, now we want you to kill your pet. And if you don't do those things, these nudes that you've sent us, we're going to send them to your school. We're going to post them online. We're going to do all these terrible things. And then ultimately their goal is to try to get the child to either to kill somebody, like to kill a member of their family, to go shoot up a school, to do something like that. And if the child won't do that, then kind of their consolation prize, if you will, is to try to get the child to kill themselves online.
How often does this happen?
So the FBI estimates that there's a few thousand members of this group globally, but when you talk to the hacker community, which has been, kind of let's just say they're much more familiar with what's going on in the internet than the FBI is. When you talk to the hacker community, they say there's somewhere between 20 and 30,000 of these people who are part of this organization across the globe. And they're on games like Roblox and Minecraft, actively hunting children and actively trying to groom those children into doing terrible things. And then what they'll also do is they'll sell these children to pedophiles. So they'll say, hey, I have this child under control. I I don't really have a use for them anymore. Pay me $1,500 in Monero or, you know, some cryptocurrency, and I'll transfer this child to you, and then you can have control of them. And so it's absolutely horrific and demonic. But we tend to focus on the group. What I think we really need to focus on is the companies that are facilitating this. So it is completely unacceptable that even one child is harmed. And there are companies like Roblox, and where the CEO, he says all the quiet parts out loud. The things he says publicly make it very clear that from a worldview perspective, he just doesn't see the problems with, as an example, adults talking to minors. Strange adults talking to minors, he doesn't see a problem with that. He even said on a podcast, when he was asked about the predator problem on Roblox, he said, and I quote, "Predators are an opportunity." He said, "We think of it not necessarily just as a problem, but an opportunity as well. How do we allow young people to build, communicate, and hang out together?"
What?
So that's a direct quote. Roblox is known as
I'm sure he's a big fan of yours, Nick.
Oh, he probably doesn't even know I exist, but he will.
He does.
He has said, he has said multiple times in 2023 and then again in 2025 that he thinks that Roblox should be a dating platform for minors.
What's this asshole's name? What's this asshole's name?
His name is David Baszucki, Baszucki. And so last time I checked, 17-year-olds were minors. So yeah. He wants the gaming platform, and it's not really a gaming platform. It's more of like a metaverse. It's almost like a social media platform with a whole bunch of games in it. But he wants that to become a dating platform for kids.
What? Okay. This is so multi-layered. That is, I think, so hard for people to wrap their brains around. So what exactly is Deliver Fund in the space of fighting online or fighting human and child sex trafficking? What is Deliver Fund's core message, and why should people, out of all the other 501c3s, why should they be like, no, that's the one that I need to be involved with?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Nick answer that. But
okay,
when you go after the trafficker, you remove the problem, yeah. And so that's what we do. We go after the trafficker. But I'm gonna let Nick tell a little, dive into more of that.
Yeah.
There's a quote from Desmond Tutu, was supposedly talking to a missionary in Africa, and the missionary is pulling children out of a river, and so Desmond Tutu is telling the story, and he says, then the tribal chief comes up to the missionary and says, "Why are you pulling children out of the river?" It's cool, because the children are in the river. And so the tribal chief says, "Well, why don't you go upstream and figure out who's throwing them in the river?" And that's what we do in the fight against human trafficking. Is there's some incredible organizations that are doing the victim restoration work, but that does not counter human trafficking, right? That is the cleanup work after the fact. We need to support those organizations because the work that they do is heroic. But if you don't take out the human trafficker, if you don't remove them from the equation, then you're just going to have more victims. In fact, traffickers have a saying within the trafficker community, which is "don't chase, replace." So it means when one victim goes away, they just go get another one, because it's that easy for them. So what we do is we are laser focused on building technology and doing operations with law enforcement to target the human trafficker. Now, you mentioned as an example, Sound of Freedom. Well, imagine how expensive it is for every single time. Tim Ballard never had a single combat deployment. He was never in the military, was never in any of the kind of stuff that I did. And so boots on the ground in Afghanistan and things like that. I did 30 combat deployments. I know as much about kicking doors as anybody on the planet. That not the right way to do things. Because imagine if every single time we went after a trafficker, I had to get on an airplane, we had to get the team together, right? I mean, that's not scalable. So, and people will say that, they'll use this starfish analogy, right? The boy on the beach who's throwing starfish into the ocean, and somebody says, well, you'll never be able to get them all into the ocean. And he says, so why does it matter? And then he throws one into the ocean. He says, well, it matters to that one. Well, that's ridiculous. We should be fighting these problems at scale. And so what we do is we have a team of analysts, former NSA, CIA, retired career child crimes detectives. We hire them and we embed them with human trafficking task forces. And what they do is they hunt down human traffickers. And then the information that they learn, that gets fed to our computer engineers, who then build technology platforms. And these are custom built technology platforms. We're not using somebody else's stuff and repurposing it for, this fight. Like, this is purpose built technology that then goes out and helps many, many law enforcement officers. I mean, we have over 8,000 law enforcement officers who have free access to our data. So the goal here is not for us to be involved in every single human trafficking operation, because there's hundreds of them. There's thousands that happen every single year. There's no possible way we could be involved in everything. I mean, that would literally cost billions of dollars. So what we do is we help law enforcement arrest traffickers on our operations side, but more importantly, we build the technology that helps every law enforcement officer in the US that's fighting human trafficking be able to get the data and the intelligence they need and the analytics tools they need without having us being involved. So the reason why my argument to support Deliver Fund is that it's the only way to fight human trafficking at scale. Like, do you want to help one human trafficking operation, or do you want to help thousands of human trafficking operations simultaneously for the same cost?
I mean, it's sort of, you're not gatekeeping the info. It's kind of like CODIS, right? You put in someone's DNA or whatever that's called. So someone's DNA, and then it hits and you've got it. It's kind of the same concept. Okay. So how can people decide what they want to do with their money they should be giving to Deliver Fund? I mean, I'm frankly blown away. Like, I'm blown away by the brain power that it takes to do this. I'm blown away by the you were out there as CIA doing whatever you were doing, and you were like, you know what, this is a need that is not being met, and I know how to meet this need, and it's extraordinary. So Christi, tell everyone how they can support Deliver Fund.
You can go to deliverfund.org. Or you can always email or call any of us, but deliverfund.org has all the information there. You can find more information on our YouTube channel. You can find the videos, but there's also a lot more videos, and there's videos that explain kind of some of the stories, and you'll be amazed at some of the takedowns and the traffickers and the different operations that we worked on. But deliverfund.org, we're based in Dallas and Whitefish, Montana. So if you're in the neighborhood, we'd love to meet.
Yeah, Nick, how can people find more out about you and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so for both Deliver Fund and me, you can find us on Instagram and all the social media channels. Deliver Fund is just at Deliver, DELIVER Fund. And then I'm at the.nic, NIC.McKinley. And then if anybody wants to learn more about me personally, I've got a website, which is just nicmckinley.com.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I was there today.
Oh, awesome.
Okay, you guys.
Just a little direct at the bottom of the show here, and then they can just.
Yes. We're going to put all that info on this so people can see it. We're going to @ you and all that good stuff. So thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope to talk to you both soon. Okay, guys, please go look up Deliver Fund and support what they are doing. I'm seriously, like, if my brain worked anything like Nic McKinley's brain, like, I would be a dangerous creature. Okay, but go follow what Deliver Fund is doing and support them today. And that's it for today. So I will see you in the next video. Remember, everybody, to keep kicking ass. and taking names, and thy will be done. Peace.